You know that strange moment when reality feels off, like the world skips a frame, a sound echoes before it happens, or a thought arrives before the reason for it exists. Most people shake it off as coincidence or imagination. But what if it's not? What if physics itself allows the universe to contradict its own rules? Not metaphorically, but literally. There's a paradox deep in quantum mechanics so disturbing that even Einstein called it impossible. It's not a mystery of philosophy or human error. It's a glitch built into the structure of reality. And worse, we've tested it. It's real. Physicists call it the delayed choice quantum eraser, an experiment that doesn't just question cause and effect, it shatters it. Imagine making a decision in the present that changes what happened in the past. Not metaphorically, but physically, measurably, provably. It's a phenomenon that shouldn't exist. It violates logic, time, and the very sequence of events that defines existence itself. And yet, when we run the experiment, the universe plays along. It behaves as if it knew what we were going to do all along. This isn't science fiction. It's the most verified form of madness we've ever discovered. And every time we test it, reality seems to crack open a little wider. Because if this paradox truly holds, then what you do right now might already be rewriting the past. To understand how this paradox works, we have to go back to the foundation of quantum mechanics, the infamous double-slit experiment. Imagine firing a beam of light, or even single photons, toward a barrier with two narrow openings. Behind that barrier sits a detector screen that records where each photon lands. If you send the photons one at a time, you might expect two neat piles, one behind each slit, like bullets passing through two holes. But no. The photons build up a delicate interference pattern, as if each one went through both slits simultaneously and interfered with itself. It's as if the photon is a wave spread across possibilities, until you look. Because the moment you observe which slit the photon goes through, the pattern disappears. The photon chooses one path, the interference vanishes, and you get simple dots again. Observation collapses the wave. Measurement defines reality. So far, it's strange, but manageable. But in 1999, physicists Yoon-Ho Kim and colleagues at the University of Maryland decided to take this one step further. They designed the delayed choice quantum eraser, inspired by a thought experiment from John Archibald Wheeler. Here's the twist. They allowed each photon to create an entangled twin. One photon goes straight to the detector, while the other takes a longer, more complicated route. A route that lets scientists decide later whether to preserve or erase the which path information. In other words, they made the choice to observe or not observe after the first photon had already hit the screen. According to classical logic, that decision shouldn't change anything, because the event in the past has already occurred. But when they looked at the data, something impossible emerged. The interference pattern, the very fingerprint of the photon's wave behavior, only appeared if the future measurement erased the which path information. The photons seemed to know what scientists would do later and acted accordingly before the decision was even made. It's as though the photon's behavior in the present depended on knowledge from the future. Cause didn't lead to effect. Effect rewrote cause. That's not just strange, it's fatal to our common understanding of time. Because if the future can reach backward and rewrite the past, then maybe time doesn't flow at all. Maybe everything, past, present, and future, is entangled in one impossible now. And that opens the door to a question no physicist wants to face. If reality updates itself based on choices that haven't yet happened, who or what is really choosing? Our instincts scream that time moves forward, that the past is fixed, the present is unfolding, and the future is still undecided. It feels like the most obvious truth in existence, as natural as breathing. But quantum mechanics doesn't care about intuition. The delayed choice experiment burns it to the ground. Think about what this means. The photon's behavior, whether it acts like a wave or a particle, depends on a measurement that hasn't yet happened. That's not just weird, it's catastrophic for the idea of linear time. Because if future decisions can rewrite past outcomes, the universe isn't a sequence, it's a network. A vast, interconnected web where every point in time talks to every other. In this framework, the past isn't gone. It's editable. The future isn't waiting, and it's already woven in. Every action you take could be part of a feedback loop that updates what's always been true. It sounds absurd, but it's not just philosophy. It's data. When we erase the witch path information, the interference pattern reappears, as if the photons had never chosen a single path. The act of erasing, done after the detection, changes what we can say did happen. That shatters causality, but it also exposes a deeper illusion. That measurement merely reveals reality. In the quantum world, measurement creates it. This means the universe isn't a fixed movie reel we're watching unfold. It's an interactive simulation, constantly rewriting itself based on what is known, unknown, and chosen. But if that's true, then observation is more than a passive act. It's participation. Consciousness, or at least information processing, might be baked into the fabric of how reality decides what's real. Einstein hated this idea. He believed reality existed independently of observation, that the moon is still there when no one looks. But experiments like the delayed choice eraser whisper something darker. The moon might only be there because it's being observed. The idea isn't that we consciously manifest things. That's too mystical. It's that information and reality are indistinguishable at the quantum scale. When you erase information, you erase part of reality's history. When you restore it, the universe recalculates itself accordingly. And that's where common sense collapses. Because if reality can be updated retroactively, then every assumption about memory, evidence, even truth itself, becomes unstable. We no longer live in a universe that simply is. We live in a universe that's deciding what it is, moment by moment, choice by choice, observation by observation. But that raises a terrifying possibility. If reality keeps rewriting itself to stay self-consistent, what happens when it can't keep up? When something this wild emerges from an experiment, skepticism is natural. Physicists tried to poke holes in it, looking for hidden mechanisms, statistical errors, or clever illusions in the setup. But every time they refined the method, the paradox refused to die. Let's climb the evidence ladder, step by step, to see just how solid this impossible reality has become. Step 1. Wheeler's original thought experiment. In the 1970s, John Archibald Wheeler imagined a cosmic-scale version of the delayed choice idea. Picture a photon traveling for billions of years from a distant quasar, its path split by a massive galaxy acting as a gravitational lens. Only when it finally reaches Earth do we decide whether to detect which route it took. Wheeler realized this would mean our present choice could influence a photon's behavior made in the ancient past, across cosmic time. It was pure theory then, but it planted the seed. Step 2. The laboratory proof. In 1999, Kim, Yu, Kulik, Shi, and Scully built the delayed choice quantum eraser. The results were unmistakable. When which path information existed, interference vanished. When that information was erased after the photon had been detected, interference reappeared in the correlated data. No signal traveled backward in time, yet somehow the statistical outcome changed retroactively. Step 3. Replication and refinement. Multiple labs have reproduced variants of the experiment, from Zeilinger's group in Vienna to more recent versions using single electrons and entangled atoms. Each iteration tightens the loopholes, making the paradox sharper, not weaker. Step 4. Quantum information theory. Physicists began realizing this wasn't about particles having secret knowledge. It was about information itself, how it's stored, erased, and correlated across space-time. When the information that could distinguish one path from another is destroyed, the universe behaves as if it never existed. That's not metaphor. It's measurable in interference patterns. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. It's not the act of observation by a human that matters. It's the existence or absence of information. The universe seems to enforce a rule. If reality can't know something, it behaves as if it's undefined. That's breathtaking and horrifying, because it means reality is not a stable foundation, but a self-consistent loop of possibilities constrained only by what can be known. And here's the catch. This rule doesn't stop at photons. Every quantum system, including the matter that makes you and me, obeys the same principles, which means this paradox isn't trapped in the lab. It's woven into the fabric of everything, including your brain. So what if your memories, your choices, your entire sense of past and future are just part of a quantum feedback loop? And worse, what if that loop is still being rewritten right now? If reality can be rewritten, if the past itself bends under the weight of new information, then the idea of an objective universe begins to disintegrate. Suddenly, truth becomes conditional, time becomes negotiable, and identity, The sense that I am the same person from one moment to the next turns into a delicate illusion stitched together by probability. The delayed choice paradox doesn't just mess with physics, it messes with meaning. Because if the universe updates itself based on what's knowable, then what we call reality might be nothing more than a continuous act of computation, a self-synchronizing simulation that maintains internal consistency, not absolute truth. It's a frighteningly elegant idea. The cosmos isn't following a fixed script, it's improvising. Each new piece of information forces the universe to rewrite its own history so that everything still fits. The past isn't dead, it's under constant revision. But this raises a haunting question. Who or what ensures the consistency? If there's no external observer watching over the cosmic code, then the universe itself must be conscious of its own coherence, not alive in a biological sense, but aware in the mathematical sense of tracking information and maintaining balance. Critics argue that we're projecting human concepts onto equations, that retrocausality is just a mathematical artifact, not a physical phenomenon. But that criticism only works if you ignore the data. When interference patterns change based on future conditions, we're not dealing with metaphor, we're dealing with behavior. And behavior implies structure, even agency. Maybe not willful agency, but something that acts to preserve the narrative of existence. Some physicists, like John Cramer, have proposed the transactional interpretation, where every quantum event is a handshake between past and future, a transaction that finalizes reality only when both directions of time agree. In this view, the universe is a vast network of negotiations, offers from the past, confirmations from the future. Only when both match does an event happen. That means time isn't a river flowing forward, it's a standing wave, a resonance between what was and what will be. And if that's true, then maybe free will isn't about changing the future, but selecting which version of the universe resonates with our observation. We don't just move through time, we tune it. But here's the paradox within the paradox. If reality self-corrects to remain consistent, what happens when human consciousness introduces contradictions? When we imagine futures that don't fit the current past? Could our thoughts, in some subtle quantum way, pressure reality to rewrite itself to match? And if that's the case, how much of what you remember was ever truly real? We stand at a crossroads where physics meets philosophy, and the line between them is dissolving. What began as a strange optical experiment now ripples into the future of computation, communication, and even consciousness itself. Because if the delayed choice paradox is real, if reality truly reorganizes itself around what's knowable, then the technologies we're building may soon exploit that feature. Quantum computers already harness superposition to calculate across parallel possibilities at once. But what happens when they start manipulating time-dependent information, tapping into outcomes that haven't yet happened? Researchers at the University of Queensland recently simulated a form of retrocausal quantum computing, showing that, under certain conditions, algorithms could outperform even quantum systems by factoring in future data. It's like coding with tomorrow's answers. Imagine prediction models that don't just forecast the future, they borrow information from it. And it's not science fiction. Quantum information theory doesn't forbid it. In fact, it might require it. Because if information is truly fundamental, then it's not bound by classical causality. It moves wherever it needs to maintain consistency. That could change everything, from how we model weather to how we understand life itself. Biological systems already display quantum effects, coherence in photosynthesis, tunneling in enzymes, even quantum vibrations in microtubules. If the delayed choice paradox operates at biological scales, life may not just react to the future, it might incorporate it. That would mean evolution, creativity, even intuition, could be subtly guided by future states feeding information backward through quantum coherence. The brain might not just store memories of the past, but fragments of the future woven into its probabilistic fabric. And that's where it gets eerie. If our thoughts, decisions, and discoveries are influenced by data that hasn't yet existed, then innovation itself might be a form of retrocausal resonance. Flashes of insight arriving from timelines that haven't unfolded yet. Maybe that's why breakthroughs often feel like they arrive out of nowhere. Because, in a sense, they do. Now imagine entire civilizations learning to engineer that flow, designing technology that synchronizes with both directions of time. A retrocausal internet, a predictive science that updates history as it evolves. But there's a danger here. If information from the future keeps rewriting the present to preserve coherence, What happens when we deliberately disrupt that balance? What if we build a machine capable of choosing which past becomes real, overriding the universe's self-consistency to enforce our own? Because then, we wouldn't just be observing reality anymore. We'd be editing it. You and I aren't separate from this paradox. We're part of it. Every neuron that fires in your brain is a quantum orchestra of electrical signals and probability waves collapsing into thought. You're not just in the experiment. You are the experiment. When you make a decision to turn left instead of right, to send a message, to watch this very video, that act might ripple backward through the informational web of reality. It's not that your choice changes the past in a cinematic sense, but that your existence updates the total consistency of the universe. You are, at every moment, part of the mechanism that tells reality what is allowed to exist. That means your life is not a simple chain of causes and effects. It's a self-correcting loop. The experiences you've had, the coincidences that shaped you, might be quantum echoes of the universe recalculating its own history to keep your story coherent. We often think of fate and free will as opposites, but what if they're entangled? The universe might be fixed in the sense that it's already consistent, but flexible in the sense that your choices define which version of that consistency becomes real. You're not a passive observer trapped in time. You're a node in the feedback network of existence itself. That's both humbling and empowering. It means consciousness isn't a byproduct of physics. It's part of physics. The observer effect doesn't end at the laboratory. It continues in your awareness. Every time you witness something, interpret it, or even imagine it, you participate in the grand computation that defines reality's structure. And maybe that's why stories like this resonate so deeply. Something in us recognizes the pattern, the feeling that life is more fluid than we're told, that sometimes meaning arrives before the reason. That déjà vu isn't a glitch, but a glimpse, a feedback from futures aligning themselves with the now. The delayed choice paradox is telling us something profound. The universe is not a machine that runs independently of us. It's an ongoing dialogue. It listens, it reacts, it evolves with us, and that realization comes with responsibility. Because if every observation, every thought, every act of knowing helps weave the fabric of the real, then maybe the most powerful force in the cosmos isn't energy or matter. It's awareness itself. But here's the question I can't shake. If consciousness helps shape the timeline, could we ever learn to consciously steer it? Maybe that's the ultimate paradox. Not that reality breaks, but that it bends to understanding. The more we observe it, the more it rearranges itself to stay whole. The delayed choice experiment doesn't expose a flaw in physics. It reveals a mirror. It shows us that the universe isn't something happening to us. It's something happening through us. Imagine that for a second. Your life, your memories, your sense of now, not random fragments floating through time, but deliberate coordinates in a self-adjusting cosmic equation. Every observation, every realization helps the universe rewrite its own coherence. You are part of the scriptwriter's hand. Maybe that's why reality feels alive when you truly notice it. The way light flickers differently when you look at it. The way coincidence lines up so perfectly it feels scripted. Perhaps awareness itself is the mechanism keeping the paradox from collapsing into chaos. And yet, we're left with a haunting beauty. The universe seems impossible, yet it persists. The paradox shouldn't exist, but it does. Maybe that's the point. Maybe reality's deepest truth isn't certainty, but participation. We look into the quantum and find it staring back, asking not, what is real, but what are you willing to make real? The next time you doubt your influence, remember, the smallest choice may echo through the timeline itself. So tell me, do you believe this quantum paradox truly breaks reality? Or does it finally reveal what reality has always been? Tell me below. Your view might change someone's mind.